Right, 1 Kings 6. Let's call this one Proven Efficiency, understanding that Solomon is going to get the temple built in this chapter. And by the end of the chapter, we're going to see that he's going to get it done in a relatively short amount of time in comparison to the struggles of not only his father David, but Saul before him. First and foremost, though, this chapter deals with a lot of description of the actual structure of the temple. So instead of spending a lot of time describing that, I'll try to more than likely link in the description box a reference to some of the videos that I think have given a pretty decent idea of what the temple might have looked like, consistent with what chapter 6 is going to describe. But the two things I do want to focus on are, first of all, a pause in the middle of the chapter where God, before it seems that Solomon has finished the temple, is going to stop to tell him this in verse 11 beginning. Now the word of the Lord came to Solomon concerning this house that you are building. If you will walk in my statutes and obey my rules and keep all my commandments and walk in them, then I will establish my word with you, which I spoke to David your father, and I will dwell among the children of Israel and will not forsake my people, Israel. Understand that this reminded me of the situation between Abram and Lot. They were a stark contrast to what we've seen out of Solomon and Hiram, the way that it seems their builders or their workmen were able to work effectively together. If you recall the story of Abram and Lot, they had a lot of success, but so much success that their herdsmen could not work well together. And so they split. Lot got first choice over which way to go. And in spite of the looks of the territory that he chose, it wasn't the best place to build because he chose to try to stake out a life near Sodom and Gomorrah, the famous cities that God would eventually destroy. And so when Lot built his nice stuff, he wasted a whole lot of time when God swept his nice stuff away with the stuff of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, essentially leaving him with nothing, thus having Lot issues. And so when God is pausing here to tell Solomon, be careful of the things that are going to go on in this place, he wants to make sure that Solomon doesn't have Lot issues, building really efficiently on unstable character ground. And understand the second point of efficiency that it might be worth taking a look at is the speed with which Solomon gets the temple built, understanding that the end of the chapter is going to let us know that he gets it done in 7 years, and that is a stark contrast to what we see in the life of Saul. Understanding that God simply told Saul to subdue Israel's enemies, most notably the Philistines. However, Saul expanded God's list of enemies out to include his own, and he eventually targeted David. And so he could not focus on doing what God asked him to do because he was split between his assignment and his personal issues with David. And so he was distracted, dragging Israel into 40 years of internal conflict, what we could describe now as trolling. A troll being defined by dictionary.com as someone who harasses other people online to try to get a negative reaction from them. To troll someone is to harass them more generally, whether it's on the internet or not. Meaning there are times when organizations can get distracted by internal trolling to the point where they cannot effectively focus on their mission, and that is where Israel was under Saul. 40 years or so under Saul, they did not subdue the Philistines, leaving the task of subduing Israel's enemies to David, who himself ruled for 40 years, but seems to have spent most of that time doing exactly that, trying to basically put out fires, making sure that the wars were ended so that Solomon, as we mentioned before, could succeed. And so Solomon, based upon that foundation of peace, is going to spend only 7 years completing the temple, moving Israel forward in unprecedented ways forever. Understanding that Solomon's builders and Hiram's builders working together moved Israel forward efficiently during a 7-year period, avoiding the temptation that had previously left Israel in roughly 40 years of internal trolling.